Well, well, well. From rainy Kuala Lumpur, we flew to the promised land of Singapore just in time to witness the eve of Chinese New Year 2025, the year of the snake. I was very excited for this part of the trip, but as you can probably already tell from the vibes of this video, this one will be short and bitter.
I've just seen someone cover their head from the rain with a MacBook.
We got to our hostel at around midday on the eve of the Lunar New Year and decided to go to Chinatown for food. So far so good, right? I mean, this is the land of bouquets and vending machines and heavenly wang. There had to be something. The place was bustling, but all we really found were souvenir shops and cheap tats, so we settled on a food court where Anthony Bourdain had recommended places years earlier. Chloe and I both chose nasi lemak, considered a national dish in Malaysia, but this particular place had also featured in the Michelin Asian Guide for 3 years running. The dish was really tasty, but the customer service I received ordering it left me hollow. Again, I ordered Shanghai dumplings in chili oil from another stall and the customer service was poor. But with this particular dish, the dumplings were bland and underwhelming. Chloe bought a pint from the bar, which we worked out to cost about £10, and the food was about £12 each. So yeah, loving life. But we were only in Singapore for one particular reason, the New Year celebrations, and that had to be good, right?
Wrong.
So, here I am in Singapore on the day after Chinese New Year. I feel really rough, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I drank a lot last night. You gotta give Singapore one thing, they pour very, very heavy drinks. I think I set my expectations a bit too high with this place. They may have been unrealistic. I always imagined Singapore as this kind of future first world city, almost an example to other nations of what they could be. And this place isn't what I expected it to be, unfortunately. I expected it to be absolutely clean, spotless. It isn't. I've been to Vancouver. Vancouver's cleaner than this place. But we came here for Chinese New Year. On Google it said that it was the second best location for Chinese New Year after Shanghai. And China has about a 9-month wait for visas, so we came here instead. What I expected to happen on Chinese New Year didn't happen at all. I expected possibly a parade. There was no parade. I expected a big firework display. There was no big firework display. We went to this sort of center point of the celebrations, which was along the beach. In fairness, it was quite a nice location. There's the core. The first thing that was scheduled there was a light show, which I thought was going to be very impressive. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was just trees. It was just trees sort of flashing for about 5-6 minutes with a couple songs in the background, and then that was that. There were some activities there as well. People were throwing coins at bells to bring prosperity. There was these weird adverts from, I think it was a local radio station, which was kind of interesting. But in general, there really wasn't that much going on for Chinese New Year, or Lunar New Year as some people call it. The scheduling for the events that were going on within this sort of compound, it was free to go in, admittedly, but the scheduling was really, really long. So the whole event lasted from 6 to 12. There was stuff there for children. The light show was at 8. The light show genuinely lasted about 10 minutes. And then the next thing that was going on was a firecracker show on a main stage, and that started at 10. So Chloe and I just decided to leave that area after a while, try and find somewhere else that was probably a bit better. And we ended up stumbling upon the Marina Bay, which was very beautiful, filled with weirdly Indian Mexican cuisine restaurants. I'm not saying Indian and Mexican, I'm saying one place, Indian and Mexican food. A combination. It was really bizarre, but it seemed to be absolutely everywhere. So we tried that. We actually had some pretty tasty tacos, and then we ended up drinking for the rest of the night. I'm not sure if you can tell, I'm really disappointed about this trip. Singapore wasn't what I expected it to be at all. I know I've mentioned that a few times already. Chloe likened it to sort of like the City of London, so the financial part of the City of London, but just over the entire city, and it is sort of like that. There's something weirdly unsettling about this place, in all honesty. There's giant magnificent skyscrapers. Practically everyone here lives in some form of flat or apartment, be it luxury or social housing.
They have a social housing scheme here which houses like 80% of the population in buildings like the one we just saw.
I don't know, the vibes are off with this place. It feels like that to me anyway. There's sort of weird veiled frets everywhere, just on like warning signs. Like for instance, you'll go to other places, there'll be somewhere that says, oh, no smoking. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Here the signs will say no smoking by law. And then there's the threats of like fines everywhere. There also doesn't really seem to be much like police around, but there's just CCTV all over the place. A common misconception about Singapore is that you're not allowed to smoke anywhere. But from being here, I've found that that's not true. You can smoke in public. You just need to be more aware of your surroundings. And you're not allowed to smoke in certain places like parks. Although the parks that they have here seem more like pathways with trees. I thought of this place as a first world country, a kind of future eco-city, an example that the rest of the world should follow. And thus far, I've been woefully disappointed with what I've seen. Chloe mentioned yesterday how disappointed she was at the lack of festivities that seem to be going on. In particular, the fact that there really weren't that many Chinese lanterns around. And it was a bit puzzling considering we had come from Bangkok, which had them everywhere, Georgetown in Malaysia, which had them everywhere, and Kuala Lumpur, which also had them everywhere. I feel like any of those three locations would have probably been better for Chinese New Year than here. I'm kind of not really sure how to like describe this place exactly. I don't know, my dad before we went, he had a look at it on Google Earth and he likened it to Milton Keynes but done better. He was obviously referencing the block roads, all the really straight, long, wide roads, and they do have them here. Perhaps this place also suffers from some of the issues that Milton Keynes has too, in terms of the, I don't know, obviously this is just my opinion, but this place is just kind of soulless. It's got that sort of vibe of like massive financial hub, huge skyscrapers with different banking companies all on the top of it. God knows how in those skyscrapers they fill every floor. I find that very hard to believe. It doesn't feel like there's that kind of organic charm that comes from places with character, places like Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur as well. Certainly doesn't have any kind of uniqueness that, say, Georgetown did. Oh jeez. I don't know, clearly what I thought this place was, it isn't. I won't be going back, and I think to anyone who's thinking about traveling Asia in the future, I don't think you need to see this place, in all honesty. I mean, for one, the prices are pretty much that of the UK. We knew Singapore was going to be expensive, but it's just pointlessly expensive for what they offer. The shops don't seem to offer any of the same amenities that that they do in Thailand or Malaysia. It's just such a shame. I'm glad I'm leaving tomorrow. I must admit, I feel pretty justified about hating on Singapore. Chloe was really disappointed with Singapore. Ollie was really disappointed with Singapore. Freddie liked it for some reason, but Freddie's now gone back to the UK, so you have to understand that I came straight from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore, and in Malaysia, vaping is completely legal. I'm glad that I've left Singapore now, because this story that I'm telling would probably get me in trouble if I was staying there, but I'm gone, so it is what it is. So I was completely unaware that vaping was very, very illegal in Singapore, and I spent the best part of the first day that I was there just walking around everywhere vaping. And there wasn't any issues, but it did get to the point where I sort of mentioned to Chloe, like, I haven't seen anyone else vaping here. And then she Googled it, and it turned out that it was actually very illegal. So I was like, okay, I'll keep that in my mind and try to be more careful. And then we fast forward to going to the airport. So in that morning, we thought that flight was at a certain time. It was actually at a different time. So by the time we arrived to the airport, we realized we had missed our flight. So everything was a bit up in the air, but we decided, you know what, we're just gonna book another flight, it's fine, and that's what we did. I got to the check-in terminal with Chloe to put my my big luggage bag through the scanner so that it could get onto the plane. And in that moment, I saw a sign that was talking about e-cigarettes, and it said to keep them in your carry-on bag. Now this is like completely my fault, but in that moment I read that as, oh, I've got to put it into my hold luggage. So I did, and it was one of those things where it was only when the bag went on the scanner and then down the hatch that I read the sign again and realized, oh no, I've got lithium batteries in my bag, I need to get my bag back. So I spoke to the lady at the desk and explained the situation to her, and she was kind of like, oh, okay, you need to go down to Lost and Found and get your bag again, I'll cancel it, whatever. This customer service lady then led us to the information desk so we could find out where exactly we needed to go. And in that moment, she sort of whispered to Chloe, he needs to get rid of that. But everything still seemed fine, because there were loads of signs up for vapes, even though they're completely illegal in Singapore. So we went down to the information desk, and it was at this point that I started to twig that the situation might be a bit sticky, because he said, so it was both Chloe and I there, and he said to me, only you can go, and you have to go through that staff entrance over there, which takes you through security. So that's what I did. I went out to the staff entrance, went to security, they did a full pat-down search of me, and then took my passport away whilst I was going to retrieve my hold luggage. So as I was going to get my hold luggage, I was speaking to the female security officer, and she asked me what was in there. And I still hadn't fully clocked what was going on at this time, so I told her, I was like, oh yeah, there's one vape in there, I got it from Malaysia. And she was like, don't you know that vapes are completely illegal in Singapore? And I kind of pretended to be ignorant to that, like, oh, you know, I've just got from Kuala Lumpur, it's completely legal there, oh sorry, I just need to remove it. So she took me to my hold luggage, and then she kind of turned around and headed back to her desk. And in that moment, I quickly opened up my bag, grabbed the vapes that were in there and put them in the bin. I then took my hold luggage back to the original security checkpoint that I was taken to, and instead of just walking out the door, she was immediately like, no, you've got to put that through the goods scanner without giving my passport back. So she took me to the goods scanner. There was a massive list of all these things that you have to declare to customs, and of course at the very top of that list were vapes. So she asked me, do you have anything to declare? And I said, no. And then she asked again, like more seriously, like, do you have anything to declare? No. And she was like, all right. And we put it on the scanner. It went through the scanner. The person who was working on that machine then gave the thumbs up, and her face just kind of went like this. And she was like, but you said you had vapes in there. And then I used shaggy logic and got out of that situation. Thankfully, we're away from Singapore now, back in the safe, beautiful land of Thailand, and I have no plans to ever go back.